who then went to William Harvey. These were all Kennedy haters, and so it was not hard to find these guys. David Phillips as well. So when it came time to for my dad to find out further details after the second meeting, he goes, well, what is it that you really need me for? And they said, well, Howard, you're someone whose reputation is solid with the Cuban community, and we know that you're someone that can be relied upon to oversee an operation in a kind of a general sense, and we just want your kind of approval, your blessing on this project. And my father, one of the things he said was, well, if Bill Harvey is involved in this, he goes, you can forget about me getting into this in a serious way, because that guy is a drunk psycho. And so that was one of the last meetings. At the last meeting they had, he did not feel confident that anything that Bill Harvey was a big part of was going to work out. And actually, the location of the assassination during these talks at the Safe House in the early summer of '63 was not determined, but it certainly was not Dallas at the time. It was more like Kennedy was coming to some places in Florida, so they were looking at Tampa or Miami, if he was going to be coming to Miami. I don't know if he was or not, but certainly it was a Florida plot. And as we now know, there were several plots, several groups, teams, or what have you, involved in killing Kennedy. There was a team that was discovered by the Secret Service, I think, in Chicago. There was also a hit team in Tampa, actually, but it was the Dallas faction that came through with the hit, and of course, CIA contract agent Frank Sturgis and his partner Marita Lorenz, who was Castro's mistress and had been recruited by the CIA to assassinate Castro by various poisons. She testified in court that she met my father when he knocked on a motel door in Dallas and handed Frank Sturgis an envelope and some papers with some hand-drawn maps. And he was introduced to Marita Lorenz as Eduardo. And she didn't know Eduardo from anybody else, but when my father's picture appeared in the paper related to Watergate, her jaw dropped, and she was like, "That's the guy that came to the motel that handed Frank the envelope of money and the maps." So, that's basically it. I know that if my father hadn't been so pressured by the other family faction, that there was a lot more to tell.
Oh, really?
But what he gave me was what it was what it was, and he said that I would have to wait till his death to bring this information out, and he sent me a cassette, not a pre-planned thing, but he sent me a cassette in the mail to my home in California, and I packaged for my dad, opened it up, a cassette, nothing else written on it, put it in the cassette player, and there he is, his voice, big as life, outlining the exact things I've just told you. And he at the end he goes, and I've made this information available to you, my son, and to you alone, for keeping for me until such time as either I express to you to work with me in releasing it, or until my death. And that was the famous deathbed confession tape.
Now, is there anything more to these tapes that you haven't played?
I haven't heard the complete tape for such a long time. There wasn't really much more that I can recall now, and all that stuff I have in storage in California, and I'm out here in Florida, so I've been trying to figure out a way to get back there and do something with all this stuff I have in storage, some of which pertains to my father, letters and things like that, and the very original tapes, of which I just I posted the meat of it on my website, stjohnhunt.com, and it's available for anyone to click and hear it at no charge for free, because my initial desire, and still my desire, is to get people to hear this, because there has never been someone of my father's stature that admitted to, well, he called himself a bench warmer, but that's a very carefully placed term. Someone who's involved but not quite active, and that's basically a good way to describe him. You know, he was asked to be there to give an overall support to the tactical end of the mission, and he was there. I do firmly believe, because my mother said he was in Dallas, and my father couldn't come up with an alibi for a 12, 15-hour period. I've spoken with the pilot who flew him into Dallas, and the complete extent of his involvement may never come out. I know that Tosh Plumley, who's the pilot that flew my dad, him and my dad were very good friends, and it's interesting because I met Tosh last November in Dallas when I went to do a lecture there at the JFK conference, and he said, "Yeah, I've been waiting a long time to meet you, St. John." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, last time I talked to your father, he told me, stay in the dark, stay in the dark." And I have stayed in the dark for all these years, and when you came out with your book, I knew I had to see you, because if you tell me to come into the light, I will come into the light. And I said, well, so we had a long discussion about my father and JFK and all these things in his hotel suite at the time. And at the end of it, I said, well, Tosh, you should come in the light and bring this stuff up. So Tosh is working on a book, and he's got a lot of great information. Tosh Plumley, he's a guy that is still alive, that was involved with Barry Seal, and he was a pilot with Barry, good best friends with Barry, and the whole Mena, Arkansas thing with Clinton and Bush. This guy's got a lot of stuff going on. But he's a real guy.
We've had Daniel Hopsicker on the show. As a matter of fact, he did. He was on my show for the first time in 7 years. He hadn't done an interview in 7 years before. He pretty much gave it up. And this show, by the way, will be played on Gene Chip Tatum's station. Okay, he plays our shows, and he was involved in all that Mena, Arkansas, and Iran-Contra stuff. So I guess it's a small world, right?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Especially in these intelligence circles, it's like they use some of these same people over and over again, in different things.
But you must have been talking to your dad before that he mailed you the tape. Now, how did that work? You wouldn't talk to him on the phone, right? You had to fly over there and see him in person?
No, I was only able to fly there, for like 2 weeks out of a year. I flew there in 2002, 2003, 2005, and 2007. And when he actually passed away in 2007. But
and then how would it work?
So it was very difficult to keep a strong continuity to what we were engaged in.
Right. But he would pour a glass of scotch and say, "Okay, let's sit down and talk about this." And how would it happen?
Well, at that time, the scotch was no longer on the table. He was in a hospital bed, and back in his own room at his house, and at that, in the beginning, 2002 up to almost 2007, definitely 2003 and 2005. He'd be able to. I'd help him transfer into his wheelchair, and we'd go out for a stroll through the neighborhood at Miami Shores, and we talk about things. And then if we were given enough privacy, which we were never allowed. I mean, my stepmother always had either some reason to be there, or she had one of two of her children there to be. Oh, I just want to just see how these interviews work. I just want to be around, blah blah blah, and we could never talk about anything. So it was we had to take our times and steal away moments to get this thing going. And in the very end, he sadly, with tears in his eyes, said he just couldn't go through with it. that he would lose his wife, he would lose the respect of his children, and after what Watergate had done to our family, he said, he said, certainly, Saint, you understand that when these revelations come out, there's going to be a tremendous amount of press, and of course his lawyer was badgering me and saying, your father's going to be arrested for withholding information, for perjuring himself during the church committee's investigation into CIA foreign assassinations, and he perjured himself in another Senate investigation into the Kennedy assassination, the Rockefeller Commission, I think that was. And do I want to send my poor old father to jail, for prison for the rest of his life? And all this stuff just coming down. It's just brutal, trying to steer through all of that stuff and feeling horrible about the whole thing. It's like really trying to work in my own brain, like, well, why am I doing this? Certainly for the historical importance of it, but at what cost? Is my father going to be put in prison for withholding information on presidential assassination? Certainly he could. Now, whether he would have or not, I don't know. But there was just a tremendous amount of weight on my shoulders and his shoulders, and it just ended the way it did. And day one, and I waited till he passed away until bringing it out, and I've had to deal with the consequences of losing my family since then. But I'm okay with that.
Do you think the other side of the family has some documents or recordings or something else that could be, or do you think they have their hands over their ears? They don't want to hear anything.
Yeah, it's their hands over their ears. See no, hear no, and say no. They just don't want anything to do with any of it.
How do they make their living? What do these people do for a living?
Well, my stepmom, my dad's second wife, Laura, she's a school teacher in Florida down here. She doesn't even know I'm down. I don't know how to get in touch with them. There's no way I can reach out to them. I reached out to them through my dad's their attorney, right, which was part of that whole Watergate plot to get the kids out of the house and all that stuff. And he texted back to me. He goes, well, none of your family still don't want anything to do with you ever. So you can just shrivel up and die, and they won't have a second thought about it. And I thought, that's really cruel. That's really it's been like 7 years now, 8 years since his death, and come on, I don't even get an audience with my stepmother or my half brother and sister to just try to explain the historical importance of what they wanted suppressed. Sorry, that's shame on them.
Well, just because the lawyer says that doesn't mean that they say that. So that's something, we can locate them for. You could send them a letter, and maybe, I reunite a lot of estranged families, man. So listen, we're down to like the last 2 minutes. And then we're going to be leaving a couple of stations. So what do you want to leave them with? How can people get a hold of you? What's your website, your book? Tell us how to find you.
Well, my website is stjohnhunt.com, spelled out SAINTJOHNHUNT.com. And you can once you click into that website, you can hear my father's deathbed confession that he taped by himself and sent to me from Florida to California. There's a transcript of it, and there's some other things. I've got a couple of DVDs, an interview, the last interview with my father about the Watergate and JFK. Is available on there. They can also just order my book through Amazon, as you said. And I'll be speaking in October in New Orleans. There's a conference or a celebration of Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday in New Orleans in October, and I'll be introducing some of the speakers at that function. And I'll probably be in Dallas again in November. So if they want to come and meet me and bring a book, if they end up buying one or something, I'll gladly sign it for them. My next book is about my mother, who led a fascinating life as an early OSS operative and the CIA. According to Dick Helms, she was a pay grade above my father.